Hey, welcome. So, when you're trying to figure out a really complex problem, how do you know you're getting the whole story? I mean, what if the real answer is hiding right in front of us just because we're looking through the wrong lens? Today, we're going to dig into how combining two really powerful research methods can give us a much clearer picture of reality.
And that's a huge question, right? Because if we only rely on one point of view or just one kind of data, we could be missing the most important piece of the puzzle, the one thing that could change everything. And this gets us to a fundamental truth, something researcher Dr. Philip Aldu really emphasizes. The reality is, no single method is perfect. Nope. Every single approach, no matter how great it seems, has its own blind spots baked right in.
Okay, so let's meet the two main characters in this story. I want you to think of them as two totally different but equally crucial lenses for looking at the world: the quantitative and the qualitative approaches. First up is the quantitative method. This is kind of like our telescope. It's built to see the big picture, to survey huge groups of people and spot those broad patterns using numbers. It's great for answering questions like how many or how often.
And then we've got the qualitative method. This one's our microscope. It's designed to zoom way in to do a really deep study of just a few cases so we can understand the rich context, the stories, and all the motivations behind those numbers. It asks that all-important question, why?
But this is where things get really interesting. See, while both of these lenses are incredibly powerful, using just one of them by itself can actually give you a distorted picture. Let's get into why that is. First, you've got that classic trade-off: breadth versus depth. Our quantitative telescope gives us that awesome wide-angle view of everything, but it's just too far away to see any of the real details. And on the flip side, our qualitative microscope gives us this amazing granular detail, but we're zoomed in so close we completely lose sight of the bigger picture. This also creates a real problem when it comes to applying what we learn. Those deep personal stories from a qualitative study are powerful for sure, but can we really say they represent everybody? Not really. But then, the big, broad findings from a quantitative survey might apply to a lot of people, but they often don't have the specific context you need to actually use them in a new situation. And they're just built for totally different jobs. You would never use a huge survey to explore a brand new idea where you don't even know what questions to ask yet. And you definitely wouldn't use a handful of deep interviews to statistically prove a hypothesis. It's like trying to use a hammer to turn a screw. It's just the wrong tool for the job. And then there are the practical limits. I mean, to get results that actually mean something statistically, quantitative methods need tons of data from tons of people. But trying to do that same deep qualitative work with a huge group, wow, it would just take forever and cost a fortune to do it right. So if each method has all these weaknesses, what's the answer? Well, this is where it gets really smart. We don't have to pick one or the other. We can actually use the strengths of one method to perfectly cancel out the weaknesses of the other. It's like they form a perfect team. Let's see how that works. Remember how quantitative data can sometimes feel a little shallow? Well, qualitative methods totally solve that. They give you the why behind the what, adding those rich stories and context that really bring the broad statistics to life. And what about that super narrow focus of qualitative research? Quantitative methods solve that by surveying a huge population. This lets us see if those deep, personal insights are just one-off stories, or if they're actually part of a much bigger trend. See? Each method perfectly covers the other one's blind spot. It's brilliant. So what this really means is that while a qualitative study on its own can't really be generalized, if you combine it with a big quantitative study, you get the confidence to make those broader claims about an entire population. And for the quantitative data that's just a bunch of numbers without any context, the qualitative approach solves that by collecting that rich, detailed data from a small sample, giving you the specific understanding you need to see how the findings might actually apply in the real world. So when you put all of this together, what do you get? You get the power of a mixed methods approach. You're not just seeing half the story anymore. You're finally getting the complete picture. So the logic behind all this is actually super simple. It really comes down to 3 steps. First, you just admit that any single tool you use is going to have some flaws. Second, you strategically bring in another tool whose strengths are the first one's weaknesses. And the result? You end up with findings that are way more reliable and credible. At the end of the day, the real key is using both your telescope and your microscope. By looking at something from both the big picture numerical perspective and the deep contextual one, you get an understanding that's just so much more powerful and insightful than either one could ever give you on its own.
And what's the whole point of this, really? What's the ultimate goal? Dr. Adu just nails it. It's all about producing reliable and credible findings. By combining methods, we're not just getting more information, we're getting a lot closer to the truth. So as we wrap up, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. In the way you look at your job, your community, or any tough problem, what crucial insights might you be missing? Maybe the other half of the story is just one new perspective away.